a new role that I have coming in life. I got a new job and a new role, and I think out of all things that I've done in my entire life, this would be the most important thing that I ever do. All right, what is up, everybody? Episode 35 of Pursuit of Balance. We're gonna take a little tangent today on a new role that I have coming in life. I got a new job and a new role. I'm not quitting functional lifestyles, but I am having a son in August. And I know my wife is like, I was telling her when I was shooting this morning, I was like, hey, babe, I'm talking about like parenthood and fatherhood and the idea of it. And we haven't announced it publicly, like publicly on the internet. I've told like all of our friends, our family, team, coworkers, clients that I'm with, all this stuff. But, she wants to make sure that we have this special photo shoot to announce it. But super, super exciting news, obviously. It's something that, like, my wife and I have been together for, well, actually, I should know that. I think 9 years now. And I've always wanted kids. And probably for the last, like, 3-4 years, I would say I was ready. And I'd never really pushed the issue. I waited till my wife was ready. And then, obviously, getting married was step one. And then, we got to technically, I guess, by the time you guys hear this, she's 16 weeks pregnant, I think, maybe 17. So whatever. We found out like a month ago they're having a boy. And I'm head over heels. I'm super excited. I know my wife is too. She's going through a different scenario than I am because she's obviously the one that's carrying the baby and growing the baby. And I just get to be excited and be on the sidelines. So I wanted to, I don't know. It was kind of an interesting thing. I was like, as I was like doing some of like the podcast prep this morning, I was like, I don't know if this is like a journal entry that I'm touching on as an episode. Like, I don't want to just share that, hey, I'm having a kid and this is like, but for me, I've always been like the most important thing to me in my earlier part of my life, in my career, like when I became an adult moving out on my own, it was like always the idea of work. Like work was my identity, right? Functional lifestyles was my identity. It was everything that I worked towards from the moment I got out of high school, still to this date, right? But I've always had this kind of like gravitational pull towards that. Like, I think that the most important thing I will ever do in my life is being a father to my now son and hopefully my sons or daughters in the future, right? Ideally, I think I want 2 or 3, maybe 4. We'll see. We'll see how my wife feels. But, so it's always been something that like has been like very dear to me as far as like emotionally the connection of it and like the purpose of life, right? Like I think for me, like I talk about this so much obviously on this show and just in general with my content that like trying to find ways to optimize health for people on, the physical, the mental, the emotional, the financial, the spiritual, the sexual, like whatever alls there are there that exist. And I think like having a sense of purpose and how you operate in life is one of those things that helps you accomplish some of these things better than anything else in life. So my biggest purpose, I think like, and it's not going away. I just think it might be moving to maybe, a close first or probably a second, to be honest with you, was like, my work was always my identity. Running a business, being successful with it, growing it still is a huge, huge part of my life. When I first started dating my wife, I was very clear that like, I want to be like clear with you that like my work is super important to me and my friends are super important to me, but my work was always my number one. And then it was interesting. Like I don't know if guys feel like this, but like I wasn't really urgent about a wedding or getting married. Like it took me, I should know these fucking dates better. So she's probably going to be annoyed by this. Sorry, baby. It took me like 6-7 years to even propose. We got married a year and a half later, but it was an interesting thing. Like when I remember doing the proposal for our engagement, I was like, whoa. Like as a man, as a human, I felt like I took like a big step in the direction of life, of maturity in a sense. And then getting married was such a big thing, right? I was just like, my wife is the most important person to me compared to anybody in life. So it was always like near and dear to me, but I knew that like for me, like the idea of a family is a combination of finding my life partner, but then most importantly is building a family with this person, right? And, we were watching this, I've been listening to a lot of the Diary of CEO YouTube channel lately. If you guys don't listen to his stuff, he's this guy, I want to say he's from England or something, but I love his YouTube channel, right? And they're long. They're like 2 to, an hour and a half to 3-hour episodes, right? But he had this guy on and he was talking about, he always does this cool thing at the end of every podcast or show that he goes, "Hey, like the last guest leaves a question," right? And I forget what the question was exactly, but it was something in the relationship of like purpose and drive. And, and he was talking about like his ability to serve is something that's become so important to him. But he was like raising humans, right? Raising a child. And I think about this a lot. Like every successful person, athlete, business owner, or every criminal, every like whatever, every division of life, good, bad, whatever you want to view them as, their life was dictated at a level of their childhood, right? And when I think about this, like when people talk about like therapy, all these things that we hold on to, these values, these principles, these ways of thinking, these ways of feeling, the ways that we operate, our physical conditioning, all this stuff, like it's built off being a child, right? And I look at this as such an important thing that like the thing that I'm going to do that gives me the most purpose in life is servicing to others, right? Like the idea, and I talk about this a lot, but like the idea of work for me is just this act of service. Like I get to be of service to somebody else. I get to be of service to my team. I get to be of service to my clients. I get to be of service to hopefully people listening to this, getting any value out of it. But really, like what allows me to make a big change in life is actually creating those changes with people, right? And I think the person that we have the most control of, and I don't mean control in like a negative way, even though obviously it could be raised that way too, is kids, right? Like when I think about like how do I want to shape, like the reason why I'm so passionate about what I do is because I hopefully want to make my community and people and around me and myself better, right? But I'm also like, how do I like contribute my part to society and humanity to make humanity better over time? And I think like, there's a hard thing in life that I think sometimes that we try to focus on the things that we can't control, right? And I say this all the time to so many people. I'm like, we can't like live on the news. We can't live with propaganda. Like, and some people are just so naive to like the idea that like, oh no, I'm not like brainwashed. I'm not listening to this stuff. And in reality, is like the exposure creates it unconsciously. But children for me is something that I'm like very, very emotionally driven by the idea of how impactful of a job and a role it is, right? So if you're somebody that's listening to this and a parent that's going through this, there's going to be a lot of stuff, hopefully, that you'll be able to, agree with, disagree with, or understand. If you're someone that's currently in my situation that's expecting, or if you're someone that's just like, hey, in the future, I do want to have a family, not putting aside the importance of just having kids to have kids, right? Because the unfortunate part is there's so many kids that don't have a good relationship with their parents. Some of them don't have both parents. Some of them are raised differently, and I'm not here to say what's right or wrong. But the way that I look at this, and I'm a numbers guy, and I was telling this to my wife actually last night, I was like, we are going to have, let's just say the typical, let's say our kid lives with us, our sons or daughters in the future. They live with us until they're, 18 years old, right? And then they move out and they go be a young adult, and then they go start their own family. And it's like it's a generational thing that we have influence on too, which is a cool way to think about it. But let's call it 20% of their life. Like we're going to be with them day to day, AKA even responsible for them day to day for the first 20% of their life, right? The other 80% of their life, they're going to then be responsible for themselves and then in the future responsible for others. And that is just this natural generational thing that happens. And if we choose to be selfish or lazy or unconscious and not aware of some of the styles of how we're going about our parenting or just how we're controlling our emotions or our style of doing it together, it is going to impact this kid's life for the rest of their life. And it doesn't mean like there is nature versus nurture. Like, there's some things that are genetically just going to be inherent, and there's a lot of it I think is going to be the nurturing side of it. And when you think about it that way, like the fact that we have as parents impact and influence and control, like I said earlier, of someone's life for, let's call it 18 years. Obviously there's, differences here. That's going to impact the rest of their life, right? So for the next 80 years, however long they're living to. And then it's going to impact their kids and how they raised it, what they liked, what they disliked, and then their grandchildren. And it just goes on forever. Like how I was raised by I didn't really have a close relationship with my grandparents. Like my dad's side, like I met them once or twice. My mom's side, my grandpa, I'm sorry, like my mom's dad passed away when I was like in third or fourth grade. So never really, at an age that I didn't really remember it. My granny, like, I have a good relationship with my granny, but like I don't see her a lot. There's not a lot of frequency there. So like a lot of my impact as a child and how I was raised as a human was impacted based off how my parents did it, right? How my mom and my dad, the relationship between each other, the relationship that I had with my mom individually, the relationship that I had with my dad, the upbringing they put us in, the principles, the morals, and there's so many things that I think it's easy to play victim to in the circumstances and why I'm not the way that I want to be because my parent, like, I still see this, like there's this attachment that some humans have where they still blame their childhood. They still blame the trauma that they dealt with. They still blame their parents, right? And I'm not here to say right or wrong of like what's going to be, the best way to go about it. That's not kind of the goal of this episode. But I do like really value and appreciate the importance of how impactful that actually is, right? And I think sometimes we operate life where we don't really understand the impact that we have on others, right? Like, and I think about this, even the smallest things, like if I go get a Starbucks or if I go to Chipotle, like the idea of someone asking how you're doing or smiling, like I'm always very short tempered with this, but I'm always like, these fucking kids working at Chipotle, like can't make eye contact, look down, have an attitude, look like they hate life and don't want to be there. I'm like, that's someone, like the way I look at it in my head, I'm always like, that is someone that chose not to have enough discipline or show the kid the right way. Like I kind of use this saying a lot that like kids, they do what what gets caught, not what gets taught, right? Like we think that like in order to build a good team of employees or in order to raise good children that we just need to tell them what to do. When in the reality, it's like they're seeing every single thing that you're doing. How you respect yourself as far as your body, how you are emotionally controlling yourself or not, how you are with your mental state and the level of stress that you bring at home, how you are in your view of spirituality and life and nature and all this stuff, how you are controlling all these social elements, environmental elements that come to us, and it's no different with any other job as a manager, a leader, or a boss. But I do think that parenting is still the most important out of all those because, like, if I can raise my son to be a good person, right? Most importantly, right? To respect himself and others, to take care of his health, to take care of his mental state, to learn to regulate emotions, right? To be socially active, to do what he's passionate about. Like whatever it is, like that for me, I'm like, fuck that. Like, it sounds intimidating a little bit, right? Like, I think like if you're in all the parents listening to this, like you might've had a feeling of that when you first had kids, or maybe even still do, that it's like the idea of like having kids is like, wow, that's a big fucking job. Like I'm signing up for something that's going to change my life for the rest of my life and for the better, like it's something that like I'm excited about. I've always been excited about being a father and being a parent to kids, like, and raising a family. But the importance of it, like the whole purpose of this episode for me is like, I just really wanted to share that for people that like either are parents or are currently going to be a parent or working towards being a parent, that like, we can't underestimate the power of what parenting does on our society and just for humanity in the future. Right. And there's so many things that over the last few years that I've learned to like kind of cherry pick, right? And I don't want to make judgments on like what I think is right or wrong so much, because the way that Nikki and my wife and I talk about it is like, who knows? Like we might get to those situations and be like, fuck, I understand now why they do it. Like for me, it was always like technology. I'm like, I want to avoid our kids being on technology as long as we possibly can. Like for me, even like, I know I didn't grow up in an era where we had a lot of it. We had a little bit of it. Like I had AOL Instant Messenger, we had flip phones back in the day, but I didn't get a phone till I was a senior in high school. I didn't get a car till I was out of high school. My parents really were the principles that they were taught in my family. I now appreciate as an adult because it forced me to work for it. It forced me to be disconnected from it. It forced me to be more social in person. It forced me to be more active, to have fun, right? And I see this and I understand that our generation is going through a change. Like technology is just way more apparent and useful and a part of our lives nowadays versus how it was 10, 20 years ago. So I do understand the difference of like the times have changed, but the idea of being a human hasn't. Right? And like for me, like when I see all these people that are suffering, all these people that are physically unwell, that are sick, that are mentally unstable, that are emotionally kind of distraught, like spiritually disconnected, like all these things that I talk about all the time. For me, I try to look back of like what caused that. You know what I mean? Like what was the thing that influenced that? And it's there's so much context to that statement. But the thing that I come back to the most is like the thing that impacts that probably the most is their upbringing and how they were raised and the values that they were taught. And I want to be very, very involved and present with my kids, right? And I told my mom and dad are all the people that heard me say this, but I put a money target. I said, but if I don't have this much money or that net worth by this time, I don't want kids. And my mom was like, I never thought about that. It's like, she's like, I commend you for doing that. Like, cause I've never thought about that. And I'm sure a lot of people don't, but like for me, going into something that I knew was going to be such a big role in life, I wanted to have as many of my ducks in line as I possibly could. Meaning like I wanted to feel like, okay, I have this, momentum on the everything I'm talking about, physical, financial, emotional, stable, all that. And I don't have it figured out. Like I'm not where I want to be, but like I've figured out a lot of the foundational things, right? And for me, teaching that stuff is going to be super important because, like, I want my kids to be able to see that, right? I want them to see the work that was involved in order for them to become successful with their body or for their work or with their relationships. And, for me, it's like, I love my job. I love my wife. I love my friends. I love my hobbies. Like, I have a great life. And I'm like, I don't want to fuck that up. Like, I don't want to raise kids that don't have that, right? And it's like, and I know that so much of this can still be uncontrolled because, like, every parent that's listening to this that has multiple kids that maybe are older, you probably understand this more because, like, every family has that, like, outlier, right? Like that one son or daughter that's just like, man, we feel like we raised everybody the same, but like, the outcome was a little bit different, right? But like, we control what we can control, and like trying to find what's fair, what's not is like, those are, I think, things that I try not to worry about too much. But this episode is definitely a tangent out of all things. I wanted to publicly share it because I've caught myself multiple times in episodes being like, oh, father in the future. Like I've almost said it a couple of times and I know my wife's like, don't say it publicly yet. And I'm like, hey, yeah. But I wanted to talk about it because for me, it's like, I'm super excited about it. And I think out of all things that I've done in my entire life, this will be the most important thing that I ever do, right? The most impactful thing that I will ever do for even humanity, right? Like, even though I can work with hundreds and thousands or whatever it is over the course of my career, and then making that change, I hopefully like, something that I'm super excited about, even just with the content in general, and even just with my job in general, as a coach, as a parent, or a manager, I'm sorry, is like the idea of being a parent allows me to even empathetically connect with more. Because my entire career, when people bring up reasons or excuses, however you want to look at it, of why they're not successful with what they're doing, and they tie it back to their kids, I've always been like, yeah, it's a victim mindset. I hate the way that sounds when I always like every time I heard it, like I hate the way that sounds. And but there was part of me that like I can't really be empathetic yet because like empathy is really putting yourself in someone else's shoes. And how can I put myself in someone else's shoes where I've never been there? I've never been a parent, and like this is gonna be my first kid. And how am I gonna are things gonna change for me? And like I want to I don't want this is kind of a weird way to say it. I'd rather make my life hard for my kids' future to be bright. Meaning like I don't want to take the easy route. I don't want to just feed them an iPad because they're crying. I don't want to just condone them because they're crying, right? Like I want to choose things that I would feel that are going to be more uncomfortable for myself or for my wife or even for the relationship between us because Nikki and I do talk about a lot. Like we really don't argue or have indifferences on much of anything, right? Like our relationship is great. I know that kids is going to be something that's going to throw us a little bit of a mix because like we grew up with different parenting styles and we have different parenting views. I'm a little bit more harsh, I'm sure, as everyone could guess, than my wife is. My wife is very empathetic and very emotional and very loving and caring, and like I have less of that. So it's gonna be an interesting part of the journey. But like I was saying, like I think for me that I am really stoked on, it's just like I think like it's just like it's gonna allow me to be better at everything else that I have been doing in my life already. Because like it's gonna allow me to have another layer of empathy that like I can connect. Like I can connect with now understanding of like, oh, like when you're underslept, like fuck yeah, it is hard to work out. Or like, oh, it is hard to be disciplined with your meal prep, right? Like, why is health so hard for parents to do? But I want to be like, fuck it. The way I'm gonna look at it is like I need to be so fucking disciplined with what I'm doing so I can show my kid that even when it is the hardest possible moments in life, that you could still show up and you can still do it, right? Or even when you are stressed out and you slept 2-3 hours for the night, that you could still have some emotional regulation and be in a decent mental state and still be happy. You know, like I want to show those things, right? I want to be outside. I don't want to be inside. I don't want to be on my phone as much as I am. Like, I think it's going to create a lot of good changes for myself. I think it's going to create a lot of good changes for my professional life. And I look at it as something that, like, like I said, I think it's just the most important thing that I will ever do in my entire life, right? It's just like the idea of having kids and how we can raise them and create good humans, because good humans create other good humans. So if I can raise my kids to have all those things, morals, principles, and habits, then hopefully they can raise their kids to be that. Or more importantly, that they can, you know, attract and create more people around them to be like that and think like that. And like their friends and their coworkers and their neighbors in the future. You know, so I think the moral of the story outside of the excitement and the announcement is just the understanding of how important parenthood is as a job. It is the most important thing that we will ever do in life. And some people, I think, like there's plenty of people. I mean, you guys are probably not listening to this, so it doesn't matter, but some people just don't want kids, right? And I'm not here to judge that or not, right? Like my brother's one of those. He doesn't really know if he wants kids or not. And there's some people that just also don't really see the importance of how much control or how much impact they actually have because they never really thought about it that way. Like, oh, like the kid will kind of figure out for themselves, right? Just got to keep it fed, got to keep it alive, right? And there's so much more that goes into it, right? Like everything that we do is like being audited by your kid, right? And if you wonder why your kid's an emotional wreck when you're one, connect the dots. You wonder why your kid has unhealthy habits or is not active, but you aren't. Wonder why. Like, you know, so really taking it as an opportunity for those that are also looking as kids, as parenthood, as part of that, as part of their future, like myself, that like don't underestimate how important that role is, because the more serious we can take that, the better our lives are going to be, but the better I think overall, when you think about this active service for humanity and society is going to be, right? Because you know, the sad reality is like there's so many people when I think about the negative sides of like what we would call quote unquote bad people or bad mistakes or bad habits that some of us have. And I'm like, no, it's tied a lot into like your upbringing, right? So that's the news. I wanted to share that with you guys. Obviously, I'm assuming that, well, not I'm assuming. I'm definitely not going to be able to post this until I actually post something on Instagram so my wife can give me the green light. But like I've told a lot of people already. I'm stoked on it. And so you guys will see a little boy running around the gym. So I might have to turn this room into like a daycare center or something. But yeah, so I wanted to share that with everyone and just kind of share my kind of, you know, philosophy of parenting. And also, it's going to be kind of interesting to see how these episodes unfold when I do have kids. Like, do things change? Do my thought processes change? Does my life change? There's the things that I thought I was going to be able to control, not have control, right? And there's all that's going to be part of a learning curve. So I'm not here to tell anybody how to do it. I'm just sharing more of my opinion of like how I think I'm going to go about it and what I view as important. Because if I can be a really, really good leader at work, if I can be a great husband, and I can be a great dad, my life is good. Like those, like when I think about the things that I need to service, the things I need to take care of, but most importantly is you got to take care of yourself. Like don't disregard anything that I'm saying. The most important thing that I will always say is I take care of my shit first. I'm not happy. Nobody's happy. So that's also another thing to tie that in, right? It's like all those things that I'm talking about that are important to me also is an element of like, you know, you have to do what's right for you, right? But the reality is like raising another human too is the biggest thing for me. All right, guys. Well, I hope you got something out of that or just maybe like the story. But other than that, I will see you guys next week. Take care.